Well, welcome back, everybody. This episode of Tech Whispers is part of our Critical Infrastructure for Critical Infrastructure miniseries, what I'm calling CI for CI. Here we are shining the light on those CIOs in companies who are enabling the infrastructure behind the infrastructure that is powering both our physical and digital lives. Today's guest is a special leader at a special company and at a special moment in time. Mike Adams is the Chief Digital Technology Officer at Black Veatch. He's got a front row seat in a leading role in what I believe is a once-in-a-generation inflection point. As AI, data centers, and the energy transition converge to drive unprecedented demand for critical infrastructure, Black Veatch stands at the center of a multi-trillion-dollar ecosystem that will shape the next decade and beyond. Mike's journey is a masterclass in courage, clarity, and seizing the moment. At every step, he's combined fearless leadership and a communication style that rallies teams, clarifies complex challenges, and inspires decisive action. Today, we are going to unpack Mike's story, his strategies, and the integral role that Black Veatch is playing in the CI for CI build-out. So, Mike, welcome to the podcast. Really excited to have you here. I want to start us off by shining the light on this special sixth sense that you have for going where the action is. So, first, let's go back. You're at DuPont in your early days when DuPont was a titan of global industry. Then you joined Brunswick just before the great COVID boating boom. And now at Black Veatch, just as the world pours trillions of dollars into critical infrastructure. Some people have good timing. You've got legendary timing.
Well, first of all, Dan, thanks. I wanted to just thank you for having me here. I'd like to take credit for all that legendary timing. Most of it is just luck. I think with my Black Veatch move, I did place a big bet. I thought that there was an opportunity, particularly in the critical infrastructure space, to make an impact digitally. And I knew there was going to be a lot of demand. And quite honestly, there's constraints on supply. So I think technology, and particularly digital technology, can help us solve some of those problems. As it was for DuPont, I interned there right out of school, was a network engineer by trade, and got a lot of great opportunity through rotational assignments, some international assignments, and followed Danny Brown, the CIO of Brunswick, who I worked with a lot of years at DuPont, to Brunswick in 2017. So as most folks may remember, etched in our minds, early 2020 is when COVID happened. We weren't really sure what that would look like. After about a month of recalibrating, people had the opportunity to basically do two things aside from stay in their house: go camping and boating. And so, as you rightly mentioned, that was a great opportunity for us. It presented its own supply chain challenges, its own availability challenges, because we were stocked out and running manufacturing facilities 24/7 most weeks.
Well, Mike, this chapter is going to be just incredible. And thanks for mentioning Danny Brown. She's one of the real special people in the industry. And we might even talk about Danny later, but we'll come back to that. But I want to shine the light on your story as part of in Black Veatch as part of this bigger critical infrastructure for critical infrastructure miniseries. And you and I have had some great chats about this, and love your thinking on it. But with AI fueling unprecedented demand for compute power, why is this an exciting time to be in this space right now? And what role does Black Veatch play in this multi-trillion-dollar ecosystem?
Maybe take a little bit of a step back and introduce Black Veatch to the audience. Pretty well-known brand in North America in particular for engineering, procurement, and construction. We do a lot of work in North America across a diverse set of solutions. So that includes advanced power gen. So think about this as combined cycle gas turbine. We do a lot renewable space. So think about large, huge solar projects, hundreds of megawatts, gigawatts. We do a lot of water work, right? So a lot of people associate the AI boom with additional energy needs, right? Both through utility, but also through options for behind the meter and working with big tech companies. But water is a huge resource in need for a lot of what we're doing to mine energy, new sources of energy, and new sources of minerals to support a lot of the tech and the chips. We need water for conveyance. We also need water for cooling. And we need to make sure we turn water in a state that it can be used by communities. So we have a big water practice as well, industrial water, wastewater treatment. So we're a fairly diverse EPC. We do a lot in the engineering, procurement, and construction. In some cases, we only do construction management for the sea. In other cases, we deliver services. And one of the unique things I think we have the opportunity to really take advantage of here at Black and Veatch is what I call phygital. I've actually heard it referenced as phygital, and I just loved it, so I stuck with it. Which is it? We work on big, physically tangible things, critical infrastructure. But you can't work on those things, you can't maintain those things, you can't sustain those things without the digital element as well. And so we're getting much more in the operations, maintenance, operating assets for everything that's outside of the data center that serves the data center, right? Substation systems, other power systems, water systems. And so I think that's a big part of what we can not only deliver through project work, but also sustaining the services.
So incredibly exciting, and as is your very tech savvy CEO. So Mario Azar, you've spoken about him many times with me. Brilliant leader. Talk about his digital vision for Black and Veatch, and how did that shape your role, even your title as Chief Digital Technology Officer?
Yeah, Mario is a great leader, great guy, and he is very focused on innovation and specifically innovation around technology and digital technology. So being a purist, most, if not all, technology is very much centered this day and age around ones and zeros or qubits as we get into quantum, but very much digital thread there. But he has a very interesting and appropriate focus where he wants to differentiate between technology at project sites, right, that may get into more advanced machinery, robotics, and digital technology enablement as well. And I think it very much centers around two key aspects of his vision and really challenges we need to overcome as an EPC. I think one of them is as we do more EPC work, the projects are more challenging. The environmental circumstances are challenging. They're typically done in very remote places. The resources are not always readily available, so we need to move them. And so when you think about all those challenges and the size of some of these projects, and combine that with the fact that skilled trades and other things are in short supply, especially with this robust demand, we need to think about other ways we can get the work done to augment our trade, our craft on project sites to support safety of them, but also to support the efficiency and the scale based on the demand of the market and the industry as you just described it. I think the other part of it is there is a broad supply constraint of not only craft, but engineering resources, right? To engineer these facilities, both again for energy, but also water and other really important resources to support this data center boom, this GPU boom, all to serve AI. And there's been a lot of conversations on whether that will continue. I truly believe it will continue. I view AI as kind of the early 2000s consumption of internet. As soon as you increase the capacity of internet, it was consumed in a heartbeat. I really view that as what's going to happen with AI because there's the large language models and the models are getting more capable and will just require more GPUs, more data centers, more energy and water. And those engineering resources, although we have good collegiate and STEM programs producing those engineers are still a constraining factor against the needs we have to build these facilities and these engineering marvels. And so when he thinks about AI, he's thinking about how can we democratize some of that learning across our engineering professionals so we can expedite knowledge transfer, so we can expedite skill sets and augment skill sets to make that a little bit more fungible for our engineering footprint, as an example. Not the only example, but as an example.
Yeah, I appreciate those examples. And the two of you together were very intentional with how you shaped your role, right? In terms of you and what you called it. And what was that conversation like?
It was interesting. Mario hired me ultimately as a chief digital technology officer. I was, of course, the CIO at Brunswick for the last 3.5 years. I did have a digital remit, so it's interesting how the two companies look at the role, the designation, but really the work was very similar, just with different industries, right? Our focus on digital was more embedded digital technology and product. In some cases, digital capability and apps to support a subscription boating service. And here it's been more about how do we democratize the knowledge? We have a lot of unstructured data, a lot of information from chief engineers, from project execution practitioners. How do we really democratize that? And so one of my first areas of focus, as most folks that have cyber and operational resilience remit, which I have as well, was to really understand how we're doing against the critical fundamentals, as I call them. And so I talked to Mario. We originally were branded as the Office of the CIO. I said, Mario, I think we just need to be IT. Right? We're going to advance the digital product operating model, but there's some things we need to do that I think is also differentiating in the business we operate in, particularly in the cybersecurity space. And I talked about the organization being IT. And he said, well, Mike, do you want to be a CIO? I said, well, I want to be the chief digital technology officer. And he mentioned, well, I'd like to see us brand the digital aspect into it. And I said, I get that. I understand that. There's the critical fundamentals. And then how do we support the enduring, differentiating capabilities of Black and Veatch? And I said, how about information and digital technology as a way to brand the organization? And he said, how about digital and information technology to brand the organization? And I said, deal. So we stuck with D and IT. And I think it's worked out really well because we've established a mission and we make sure at the center of that mission is, hey, we have critical fundamentals, what Mario calls the brilliant basics. We need to focus on that, right? We need to build credibility, both for our employee owners here as ESOP, an employee-owned company, but also for our clients and in partnership with the many partners we work on to deliver the capability we deliver. And as we do that, right, we're earning a seat at the table, right? On making sure our organization is thinking differently about how we show up as business people to help support digital product outcomes, both at the project site, but also some of the generative and agentic AI work we've been doing with other functional areas in our engineering capabilities within the company. So it was a really interesting conversation. I think it helped us really calibrate and get aligned on how we wanted to approach this.
So good. And it's like so many things, I'm sure the value is as much in the conversation you had as opposed to even the outcome, right? It's just
Absolutely.
that rich dialogue. Obviously, Mario spent a lot of time making sure he got the right person in the right seat on the bus. And so one of the things I really admire about you, Mike, is you do the same thing. You're very intentional when it comes to your people, building a world-class team. And I'll say it this way. You kind of have that Goldilocks approach to building your team. You're getting it just right, right? In terms of your internal, the people that are in the organization, complement that with other folks. How do you approach all that? Talk about your workforce strategy, the way you think around that. And but I want to first weave in your first mystery question because
Oh, wow. I
this
can't
person,
wait.
the first of six, someone that is at the table, and we'll be able to tee this up. So listen to your first mystery question.
Mike, as you built your leadership team at Black and Veatch, you invested deeply in both succession planning and bringing in fresh talent from the industry. I know that was not easy, especially in times of massive transformation, the need to change quickly. What guiding principles or personal philosophies did you rely on to make those high stake decisions as you shaped the leadership team for the future?
I know who that is.
All right. Who is that?
We call him the pride of Peoria, Illinois, Josh Edwards.
All
So,
right.
so Josh is leading my data analytics and AI organization. He's also right now extending his remit to include our digital product organization, a nascent capability we're building within Black Veatch. But his primary remit is to focus on data analytics and AI and our AI strategy and the digital products that align to what we're doing in Black Veatch around both generative AI and applied AI, machine learning. And I think it's a great question. It's something that I preached, talked a lot about with my leadership team. He happens to be one of the leaders on my leadership team that we pulled through succession. So one of the things that I think is really important to consider, especially when you're a new leader at a company, is to be thinking about what the company needs and BV needs, but also to be thinking about what the organization needs. I'm coming in day one thinking about, okay, I need to observe, understand kind of what's going on at the ground floor. There will undoubtedly be change. It was a big part of why I was brought in. But if I'm just thinking about the starting point as my day one, and I'm not taking into account the starting point for the organization, which is maybe day 750, I, I'm discounting the amount of change the organization's already been through. And so what I felt like I needed to understand was, where did I absolutely need to build nascent capability to go after leading folks in the market? Where did I have leaders that I can align to certain responsibilities, critical responsibilities, and their leadership would shine through? They could really start to scale the capability. And we had some footprint or a beachhead of capability. And where do I need to identify those key leaders that are at the next level down to pull them through succession? And the way it ended up, it was almost like a third, a third, a third on my leadership team. So we brought in a new CISO because that was clearly an area that we needed to step up, not only because it's obviously our right to operate, but because we wanted to be a more critical player as ultimately to our clients, our critical infrastructure clients in the market, to not only offer critical infrastructure operating assets, but an associated cyber advisory and consulting capability. We also did that in the architecture, cloud engineering, and resilience space. There's more work that we needed to do to layer in resilience, and we're actively doing that. Josh is an example, and then there are other examples of where we pulled through succession. He was really doing a great job, and with the right fit within the organization and the operating model, it's just amplified his impact. And we have several leaders, some of which did not grow up in the IT profession, that are on our leadership team that bring that perspective, that business perspective, that managing process perspective. So it's a really healthy mix. It's not kind of the best of breed across every domain, because that's a very difficult team to manage and build the right teaming and trust and glue to execute. And so really have to diversify our investment there and also give something for the organization to look at and to model and see that they can develop and become part of this leadership team and a part of what we're building here. So that was my approach on it. Obviously, the BV need is important and critical, and certainly don't want to underestimate that. But we also had to really align to where the organization was and how they could get their arms around it, and as we call it, accelerate out of the curve into the new operating.
Fantastic. Well, a true Goldilocks approach, Mike. And I know every time we talk, you talk about your people and how proud you are of the team. And so it's great. And, thank you to Josh, the pride of Peoria. I'll let him know that when I see him next time. That's awesome. That's awesome. Another mystery question right in the heels of that one is going to help us learn more about you and what are your other leadership superpowers, Mike. So listen in.
Mike, one of the things I have admired most about your leadership since you came into BV is your ability to be very strategic. And at the same time, you can dive very deep into the minuscule details of a technology issue. You can cast a vision at the same time, develop a down to the minute execution plan. Most executives do not maintain that depth of knowledge or attention to detail as they progress. I'm curious, to what do you attribute that ability?
Well, that's Joy Johnson. That's my chief of staff and leads my office of the CDTO. She has accountability for a lot of our governance processes, including strategy, PMO, our financial investment plans, forecast budget, and much more. She was also the person I referenced that was not an IT professional by trade. She was an HR professional, finance professional, and she's brought a lot, that lens, which has been tremendously helpful as we've thought about our operating model, a lot of our governance to really manage the health of DNIT. It's interesting. I guess a unique part of the way I operate. I would definitely say when I started my career, my inclination was to be very execution oriented and very detail oriented, as probably a lot of people are before they really start to understand all the complex interdependencies of strategic decision making and thinking. And also, I think the other part of that is how you build followership and bring people along for the ride, right? And to me, the biggest unlock to a lot of the technology that we're advancing here as humans is human behavior. It's not the technology enablement as much as it's the human enablement of some of these technology capabilities that we're building and scaling very quickly. And so when I started, I was a network engineer and I'm a frameworks guy. So one of the first things I learned out of college as I got more practical knowledge of what I was working on was the OSI model, which stands for Open Systems Interconnection. It was a framework. It was a stacked framework that described 7 layers that talk very much about how connectivity works and how we're all connected. And it's still very much relevant, right? It starts with the physical layer. It then goes to data link, network, transport layer, session, presentation, and application layer. And so when you're troubleshooting an issue, you always start at the bottom to make sure that layer is in place and functioning the way it should. And there's ways to validate that. And you work your way up until you can close in on what the issue is. The reality is that's a good analog to virtualization in the compute space. It's a great analog to many people that think about crypto. They probably talk about layer 1, layer 2 chains. It's a great analog to AI as we move from generative to agentic and then agents communicating with different agents. Same thing from an API perspective. So I've always combined that framework way of thinking technically with just a natural curiosity that's kept me interested in remaining relevant with technology. And that's the reason why I think I really flocked to like the chief architecture role in Brunswick and other architectural roles before I even became CIO. I think that the piece that I'm starting to work on and continuing to develop is that strategy part of the brain and thinking about not only what our strategy should be to enable the business, right? Which we use something I call 312, and it's not just the Chicago area code, right? But also, how do we bring humans along for the ride, right? Because we can develop the best strategy ever. If we can't connect it to execution and how we influence and build followership, then it's just a strategy on paper. And so that is something that I've spent probably the last 6 to 7 years of my career really focusing on through reading, through trialing, through using a 312 framework that I really appreciate and I think helps us think about what might influence the direction we're going in without anchoring ourselves in the current state So 3 is horizon 3, right? Where do we believe we need to go? And it's usually based on a lot of factors, business strategy, our own competency and capability, and then other external factors. 1 is where are we currently in relation to where we need to go? And then the real strategy comes with horizon 2, which is usually a multi-phased approach with practical, small, executable steps to move in the direction of horizon 3. And that's really been a focus of my work with my leadership team, I would say, over the last 6 to 8 years.
Well, I'm really glad that Joy participated, asked that question. Thank you, Joy. And had lunch with her recently, and I asked her, I'm like, what? Seems like you have a lot of hats here. What are you doing? And I mean, I think we got through appetizers into the main meal before she finished highlighting all the different things she's doing there. She's pretty special.
She's got a lot on her plate, and she's building a great leadership team as well to help with all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, good stuff. Mike, you talk about your strategy, and I've had the pleasure of reviewing it, and I've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of these, and I'm going to tell you right now, yours is one of the best I've seen, and I'd love you to just kind of share the thinking, the strategy, the vision. You talk about really the kind of anchoring of the digital business platform. I think just so much richness in there. So we could take a whole podcast to talk about your strategy, but
Yeah, it's true.
give us the big pillars, the big rocks.
One of the first things we did as a leadership team is we developed a mission for DNIT. We didn't create a purpose or a vision, right? Because we have that at a BV level, right? We are the leader in sustainable infrastructure, right? And we're looking to make a world of difference, right? And so we wanted to build against that, our mission to support the BV vision, purpose, and strategy. And so our mission is really focused on secure, resilient, and scalable digital capability. And the how around that is by relentlessly empathizing with our customers, who include our clients, our employee owners, and partners, and really staying focused on high value outcomes, which for us is not like a publicly traded company where at times in the course of that company's scale, they'll focus on high revenue and really scaling at the expense of profitability at times as a strategy. Here, as an employee-owned company, we are very much focused on opportunities that give us really good operating income and the best margin. And there's a lot of opportunity out there, and we can't even fulfill as much as we're being asked to fulfill. So we have to place bets. And so that kind of led into, well, what do we need to understand, right, to really develop our focus areas and what we call our strategic levers, which I'll mention in a second. Well, we have to understand our own strategy as a company, right? And we have some pillars against that strategy. We want to be the top talent destination. We want to ensure profitable growth. And we want to make sure that we're partnering strategically with our clients, right, to advance their strategies as well. So we really look to create strong relationships with our clients as well. And so we understood our strategy. We also had to look at our own capabilities. And in some cases, we had some gaps in capabilities that were more important to close to best align with supporting the BV strategy. And then at the same time, we had to look externally and say, okay, what is the market saying? Or what are government and administration saying about where we're going to place bets in the energy space and in the critical infrastructure space? And what does that mean also to the competencies we need to build within DNIT? All of that, right, gets mixed around in a mixing bowl, right, and starts to support where we need to focus. And so our 4 strategic levers, which we referred to as this digital business platform, are centered around focusing on security and operational resilience. Again, not only for a right to operate, but also a right to win. A lot of our customers require FedRAMP compliance. We are CMMC certified, We're one of the early EPCs to get CMMC certified, and that's actually been a big strategic enabler for us. And as I mentioned, we also have that cyber advisory business as part of our overall infrastructure advisory. We then need to focus on employee experience. We are a knowledge-based company, and our product is our people, right? And that's really why one of our pillars is top talent destination. And so we have to be focused on how we can support their productivity and their ability to collaborate. And it doesn't just happen within these four walls. We're talking about out on project sites, which introduce all kinds of dynamics. We're also focused on business process modernization and transformation. Black Veatch did a great job leading up to even my arrival. I was just in the tail end of this, moving to Oracle Fusion, a SaaS-based capability for much of their core financial transactions. We're now embracing that same transformational move to HCM. And so we have a big focus in many areas, not just in the HR space, but also in the marketing and sales space, top of funnel to bottom of funnel, as well as obviously in the engineering and construction space to develop our strategic target architecture and platforms that we can build around, right? Because we want to create some reproducibility and standardization where there's really not value in differentiating. And then finally, we are focused, and this is the D in DNIT, on data analytics and AI as delivered through digital products and a digital product operating. This is something that we're increasingly looking to flange up with our innovation culture and our definition of innovation at Black Veatch, which is we look at both iterative innovation and disruptive innovation. And so this digital product operating model is a bit of rigor around that disruptive side of the house. Think about it as an R&D pipeline for a products company, very similar to what we had at Brunswick. The process, goes far beyond ideation, right? Is very rigorous, right? Especially when you're trying to create a product roadmap and make sure you don't have gaps in your product family and strategy. But we're looking to do the same here. But in addition to that, we're also looking to put some capabilities in the hands of our employee owners as makers, true makers, to lower the barriers to what we call iterative innovation and allow them to work within their own productive ways, but also with smaller work teams to innovate and find ways to deliver our capabilities more efficiently. And so that's kind of the kind of move around the sun, so to speak, with the sun being our digital business platform. Operational security resilience, focus on enhancing employee experience, modernizing and standardizing business process, and then data analytics and AI enablement through digital.
It's an incredible story. It's coming together. People getting excited, starting to see the wins, the successes. It's going to be an amazing ride. And along the way, you have some fun. I mean, you make up words like fidgetal. Like,
yeah,
what the heck is fidgetal, Mike?
Hey, you know what? When I hear a word that it just resonated with me, and I didn't make it up. I actually read about it, and I said, I love that word because it's becoming increasingly difficult and probably not even appropriate to decouple the physical and the digital, right? The reality is, and I remember a time in nuclear age, when, let's say 80s and 90s, where you had these massive nuclear power plants. My dad was actually an electrical engineer at the nukes. There was one local to me in South Jersey. You could see the cooling tower from the tri-state area. And there's a lot of physical security, right, around preventing people from getting into the site. They were closed systems. But now, even beyond nuclear, for all critical infrastructure, the digital is so important. It's important for safety. It's important to ensure we can scale the capability. It's important to ensure we can maintain the equipment, right? The industrial equipment we need to maintain. And it's important for cybersecurity reasons as well. And so I think that there's an analog to most industries and most companies, but it's critically important that we're thinking about digital controls, not just physical controls and digital controls separate from each other. They really work together.
Brilliant. Well, if people are listening, they're picking up on You're all about the customer, the client. You know who those different stakeholders are. And we've got a mystery questioner that's going to shine a light on that a little bit even more crisply for us. Let's see if you recognize this voice, Mike.
2 or 3 years from now, what would be your story about your recent learnings that have transformed your company, that have developed your staff in this crazy, disrupted environment? The environment that we have not seen previously by tariff, war, climate, AI-driven, severe technology changes. And also, how did you apply these learnings in a way to be better, to make human-centric solutions for unmet customer needs in this AI-driven digital world?
So that is Fong Tram. And Fong was my CIO at DuPont very early in my career. And Fong actually asked me earlier in my career if I would move to India and help build an operating model and an offshore delivery center for DuPont, which I decided to do. And it was a great experience. And Fong's been a great mentor of mine. He is, at least from my perspective, the first person that I actually referenced 312. So people attribute that to me. It's definitely a big part of my playbook. And they sort of make the joke that I live in Chicago right now. I'm still in the process of moving to Kansas City. And 312 is a Chicago area code. So that must be the reason I thought of it. But in reality, he was always somebody that thought about big opportunities and how we anchor back to where we are and how we can establish executable plans to get there. So I attribute that to him and a lot of the way I think about things strategically to Fong. He's right. I mean, this is a really dynamic time. And I would take it all the way back to pre-COVID into COVID, right? I can tell you for Brunswick, we were almost on daily calls trying to figure out how we can move product, how we can get inputs for manufacturing to make sure we weren't drying up lines, because obviously the supply chain went through a huge recalibration that made it very difficult to continue to consistently produce some of the highly complex products, boats, engines, discrete products that we needed to put out there at a time of high demand, as I mentioned earlier. And now we're confronted with, I think, very different views administratively, particularly in the US, on how we produce, distribute, ultimately transmit energy to support a hugely growing need for energy globally. And so I think a couple things I've learned to hit at his question is you have to be ready to change, and you have to go in with a mindset that changes the norm. But you also can't overreact. You can't lead an organization and whipsaw them around based on everything that gets announced, whether it be on Twitter or X now, based on what it's called, or in the news, or it's just a lot more direct access to pretty powerful people that can influence changes in direction. And so I think it's important to anchor back to the mission. This is why we established the mission, to anchor back to our strategic levers and to focus on advancing our strategy and reevaluating probably more frequently whether the strategic priorities are still the right ones. In many cases, the underlying strategic levers aren't going to change, but in partnership with our business, our focus within those areas could. But I don't think that we can as leaders, whipsaw our organization based on what I view at times can be posturing to support other negotiations. You got to kind of let some things land. And that doesn't mean you don't need to be agile. We absolutely need to be agile, but we almost have to really confirm what we hear and give it some time to rest. I can't read the article, but it was around financial investments, and at times your best move is just to wait and hold. And I would say in this environment, sometimes our best move is to wait and hold and continue to anchor back to our mission and our strategy and our execution plans. And sure, some things we'll have to make some adjustments around and probably have to do that fairly quickly, especially if we're going to wait and hold. But that's really the way I think about it and what I try to tell my team so that we're not constantly bouncing all over the place, can maintain some focus on moving things forward.
So good. Thank you, Fong. Fong was on a really cool international vacation when I reached out to him, and he's like, "Nah, I'm gonna when you need it," and he pulled it off from somewhere in Europe. So thanks to him, and meant a lot to him, which says a lot. And to your point, Mike, I saw
He's created such a leadership team, by the way. I mean, if you think about all the people in his lineage that worked at DuPont and kind of where they are today, I mean, it says a lot for him as a leader.
it's impressive, yeah, for sure. Steve Uzel is a National Geographic photographer, and I saw him keynote a couple of times. And one of his key points, and I've stuck with me to this day, is it reinforces your point. He said, sometimes as leaders, you just got to wait for the light to be right. And coming from a National Geographic photographer, that says a lot, right? Just in terms of that patience, or that sometimes it's better to wait. Mike, I've got some other friends of Mike teed up here. I want you to listen to their questions. And this first one is going to be someone near and dear to your heart and really gets to your CIO journey. So check it out.
With hindsight being 2020, it's clear that certain pivotal experiences paved the way for becoming a CIO. Looking back, what stands out as a defining moment, opportunity, or experience that significantly propelled your journey to CIO?
Well, that's probably the easiest one, maybe the easiest one I'll get. That's Danny Brown.
Speaking of Danny Brown from earlier, right?
Yeah, that's Danny Brown. She's the Whirlpool CIO and formerly the Brunswick CIO. And I worked with her probably for 12 years at DuPont and a whole number of areas, including the data BI and analytics before we really referred to advanced analytics at DuPont. Definitely a mentor of mine, really took a chance on me, which I really appreciated as the chief architect for Brunswick, and taught me a lot about what it means to be a leader. And I owe her a great debt of gratitude relative to my journey and just building my leadership approach and the opportunities that I got as the CIO and now a CDTO. It's a great question. And I oftentimes just think about my career and never really thought I would be the CIO or chief digital technology officer, which really wasn't a thing when I was younger in my career. I always was ambitious. I wanted to do very impactful things. And I felt like there'd be a bend of business and technology, but I was absolutely interested and had some business roles as well along the DuPont journey and really enjoyed them. I had a P&L opportunity at Brunswick. So wasn't always sure that I wanted to be a CIO, but always knew I wanted to make a big impact. And I would probably identify my opportunity to work in India and to build an offshore delivery center across infrastructure, apps, data management, analytics. And that included a partnership with two pretty big SIs and then a captive capability within DuPont where we hired our service delivery and solution delivery leaders in region. I actually did an international commuting assignment and lived in the Gachibowli area of Hyderabad. That's where we were co-located. And honestly, I did that for a few reasons. One, I knew that I wanted to continue to take on bigger challenges, but it also came at a time where my mother passed away. She was the breadwinner of the family, very young. She was 56 years old and went through some trials and tribulations. I owe a great bit of gratitude and to my wife, who was basically a single parent during that time for very young children who, by the way, I'll give them a plug, are four wonderful children now, two in college, two in high school. And I think because of that experience, I really had in my mind that, listen, you only live once, and this is an opportunity. Grab it by the horns and do the best possible job you can. And I think at that point, it really gapped kind of how people saw me and gave me even more opportunities that I just jumped all in on. So it's a bit of personal and human side and a bit of professional side. And I'm not sure if that prepared me entirely for becoming a CIO, but it certainly prepared me for with a mindset of wanting to make a huge impact on business and for companies. And like I said, I think without my wife, unfortunately, without my mother's pretty tough circumstances, which still impacts me to this day, and without obviously the support of Danny and Phone, I'm not sure I would have been on the trajectory that I feel like I'm on today, which is tremendously fulfilling.
Thank you, Danny. Just one of my favorite people in our profession. I know she is too for you, and she's impacted so many people. She was, so Tech Whispers originally was called CIO Whispers. That was the first year or so, and Danny was in that first group back in 2021. So
I remember that. I
yeah.
remember that.
Yeah, she's so good, doing board work, doing just exceptional work. But get another mystery questioner here for you, Mike. And again, I think you're going to pick up on this voice right away. And this question is going to really get to, you talked really about how Black and Veatch is differentiated. This is going to get to how you're differentiated as a leader. So check it out.
Mike, what is it about you and your skill set that enabled you to bubble up and be noticed as a leader within the strong leaders that were there for his generation? Because that's exactly what he did do. We had very, very strong leaders, and he was one of the ones who bubbled up as a leader amongst leaders. So what does he see in himself?
That at first, I didn't recognize the voice, but then as he continued on, I absolutely recognized the voice. That's Greg Lane. Greg Lane, I worked with Greg at DuPont. He was a mentor to me as well. Great guy. He's mentored a lot of people. He worked in the telecom space, even ahead of me getting there, fresh out of college. So we spent a lot of time on infrastructure and technical discussion. We had a lot of forays in M&A. As most people know, DuPont's been through quite a bit of M&A. And even when I was there, the Dow DuPont merger of equals. Before that, the chemicals business spinoff to Chemours, which is where Greg went as the CIO, and DPC, DuPont Performance Coatings, to Axalta. So we spent a lot of time on portfolio change and M&A together. He's also a poker buddy of mine. So we used to do a lot of have a lot of poker fun. It's been a long time, so next time I make it back in the region, we'll definitely have to pick up on that. Great question. I think it does go back to what I just talked about, right? The joke with me was, did you ever hear that Life cereal commercial? Mikey likes it. So not only did I resemble that from a food eating standpoint, I eat anything and everything. Mikey does like it, but the opportunities, right? When we needed to move out of our data center to a hosted capability, it was talk to Mikey. Uh, let's see if he'll lead the project. When we did that beyond just the extranet and moved server and storage and everything to an IBM hosted solution, I was a big part of that. And we needed to go evaluate a company in Denmark, Danisco, for acquisition and integration, talked about the India experience. So I think a lot of what I would say helped me in differentiating myself was just my nature to want to take on pretty significant challenges, big, hard, thorny things. And this was still when I was largely an individual contributor. It was before I really got into leadership. It's actually how I broke into leadership functionally, right? Leading large teams, and taught me a lot about really those 5 layers of leadership, and moving from positional leadership to moving to leadership because people want to follow you, right? And in many cases, I didn't have positional leadership. I had to influence, right, followership, because I had a functional role as a program lead, but I didn't necessarily have a administrative organization. So a lot of really tough ways to learn things because you're at the edge of your comfort zone and you're dealing with a lot of things, right? But some of my biggest learnings that contribute to this day to what I believe I am as leaders.
Great answer to a great question. Greg, thank you. One of the gifts of this podcast, being a host of this podcast, by doing these mystery questions, I get a chance to hang out with people like Greg. And as we're recording, I'm learning from him. I'm inspired by him. And he's now the CEO for the state of Delaware on a
Absolutely.
great chapter and doing amazing things. So he didn't tell me the poker part of the story, but
He kept that out. I'm glad he did. Because we had some fun. But he was also the CTO of the state of Delaware prior to being a CIO. So he's done some really great things for the state of Delaware.
Yeah, good stuff. I want to give one more mystery questioner here, and then maybe just as part of the answer. I mean, this group of people at DuPont, we think GE and all the great leaders that came out of there, which happened, Ford, Dell. There's certain companies, certain pockets at certain times, and you all were there at DuPont at a really special time. So as you hear this next question and questioner, maybe just think about that in the context of this next user. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Hey, Mike, you and I started working together back in the DuPont days, I'd say early 2000. We both grew up in the DuPont family. And I'd say the one thing I think is your superpower is your no fear attitude to take on new opportunities. And I distinctly remember this when you were offered the opportunity to travel quite frequently to India to build our application management service in Hyderabad. And I remember thinking, wow, that's a big ask. That's a lot of travel. And I think you were on kid number 4 or number 5.
Yeah, I'm going to just break it there because she went on to say some other really amazing things about you personally. But that whole no fear thing.
Yep. So that's Andy Lee. And Andy Lee and I actually started when I was starting as a limited service employee and an intern. She was starting as a full-time employee in the IT field program for DuPont. And I think like our starting days were exactly the same. And I was bouncing back and forth to finish my college education at the time. And her focus, she actually was one of the leaders that was also identified at DuPont and has had a ton of great leadership roles throughout her career at DuPont. I believe she's now the chief digital officer at FMC. And so she's done really well for herself. And her focus has been in the digital space and digital enablement space. And we haven't connected in a while. Honestly, we probably should connect and just compare notes relative to the digital journeys we're building for both of our companies. But she's done a lot of great work for DuPont. I'm sure she's going to do some great things for FMC as well. Yeah, I think it gets back to the Mikey likes it, right? I do like a big challenge. We were only on child number 4. We do not have 5 children. We only have 4. So it was 4. And obviously it gets back to some of the support system too. Or you can only take on these challenges and do these things with the right support system. So my wife had as difficult a job, if not more so, than I did dealing with 4 kids between the ages of 3 to 7. At the time, I think I was going back and forth to Hyderabad. I'd spend 3.5 weeks there, a week back, and it was definitely a challenge mentally and physically, but tremendously fulfilling. And again, something that I believe helped propel me to other opportunities that gave me, I think, the experiences that I needed to lead the organizations both at Brunswick and here at Black and Veatch. So I definitely had the ambition. I wanted to make an impact, but maybe the important thing here that I haven't spent a lot of time on is we all need support systems. We all need mentors. We all need our own board of directors. And I had one of the greatest support systems for my wife. And even to this day, I'm traveling back and forth. It's like a hop, skip, and a jump compared to my trip from Wilmington or Philadelphia to Hyderabad. But I still travel back and forth between Chicago and Kansas City. And even this opportunity at Black and Veatch wouldn't be possible with the great kids I have, responsible kids, and my wonderful wife as a support system. So we all need our support system.
Good stuff. Andy, thank you. And she's just going to kill it at FMC. And I'm going to see her in a couple of weeks, Mike. They are winners of the CI 100 award. And so
Awesome.
I'm going to see her out there at that event, and going to be pretty cool. So thank you.
Awesome.
We're going to get you back to Wilmington so you can catch up with Andy, play some poker with Greg, go see Fawn.
Yeah, definitely. Greg has a place in Ocean City, Maryland, and that was an annual poker extravaganza. So we might need to get that going again.
All right. Well, I'm a bad poker player, so you guys want to invite me to that?
Absolutely. We'll have you there anytime.
Good stuff. Well, we're winding down here, Mike, but one thing that we do here that's so important, so special is our Tech for Good scholarship, right? And so, to date, we've gifted scholarships to over 36 STEM nonprofits that are benefiting from our TechLX leadership program you've leveraged in a couple different places now. And we're excited, over $400,000. We had no idea when we started this podcast this would become such a big deal, but
That's outstanding.
yeah, I'm excited about that. But you are involved with a lot of different programs and STEMs. But is there somebody that you want to gift this scholarship to, Mike?
No doubt about it. So at BV, we have a close partnership with Operation Breakthrough. And within digital and information technology and DNIT, we've established a partnership with Operation Breakthrough. We're really focused on a multifaceted program plan where we've engaged them in our technology showcase that we put on in May, demonstrating just some of the STEM capabilities and some of the entrepreneurial capabilities of this STEM program. A little bit about Operation Breakthrough. Operation Breakthrough is a local Kansas City STEM program, and it really operates as a school. It's not just giving kind of after school care and opportunity to different STEM programs, but they actually run a school from pre-K all the way up and into high school. And they also have high schoolers and middle schoolers that come after school, right? Parents are still working and they participate in all kinds of things, right? They're retrofitting cars. So a lot of the trade, they're doing a lot of hydroponic work. They grow fruits and vegetables in their own farm, 3D printing, podcasting. So it really actually expands what we would typically think about relative to STEM, the math, the engineering, the sciences. And it's such a great program. It's something that's very close to Kansas City. In fact, several of the Kansas City Chiefs also support and back Operation Breakthrough. I guess I'm not as thrilled with that because I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan. But they still allow me to be a part of the program anyway, nonetheless. And so we definitely like to connect Operation Breakthrough to this opportunity.
That is outstanding. It's an organization I was not familiar with, but I am so glad to give them the shout out and the exposure here. And And as long as the Chiefs aren't playing the Eagles, we're good, right? That's
Yeah, the problem is they play September 14th here at Arrowhead, so I might have to figure out how to get.
all right, all right. We'll make that happen. Sounds good. Well, Mike, I want to one more. Danny had another question. I just wanted to I thought it'd be a good bow on your podcast, and she said, given the significant impact you've already made, coupled with your future potential, what legacy do you envision leaving as the CIO? I think that's a great question.
It is a great question. Honestly, I've never been much of a legacy guy, but the way I think about it, and maybe similar to a legacy, is I've always been someone that wants to finish what they start. And in this business, you never finish what you start, right? There's always something new you have to do. And so one of the things that I want to maybe be known for is somebody that gave every ounce of his being to the role, the job, the team, the organization, and left the company and the organization better off than when he started. And that's very important to me. I mean, even when I moved from DuPont to Brunswick, I gave them 3 months notice to make sure we could align a lot of what was going on. Then it was a Dow DuPont merger of equals, and we were starting the spin work. I gave 6 weeks to Brunswick just to make sure we could get a pipeline going for my successor. And I think we built a great leadership team there that could take on and carry everything forward. And that's just the way I think about things, right? I just want to finish what I start and make sure that the companies that I work for are better off than when I started. And so if that's a legacy, great. But it's just kind of how I think about things and how I try to approach what I do, very deliberate.
I think that's a phenomenal legacy, Mike. And gosh, I've had so much fun. The time has flown. I can't believe how much ground we covered and
Absolutely. It's been
how
great.
fast it's gone. So thanks. We've been wanting to do this for a long time and just shine the light. And it's just so special for you and Black and Veatch to be part of this mini series. So the timing couldn't have worked better. But thank you so much, Mike.
Absolutely. Dan, thanks for the invitation. Really enjoyed the conversation and looking forward to working more with you in the future.
Well, this episode with Mike was part of a really cool mini series called Critical Infrastructure for Critical Infrastructure. We are shining the light on extraordinary leaders who are redefining the infrastructure behind the infrastructure. Last time we heard from Afshin Talasaz from Colonial Pipeline. Next, we're going to hear from Katrina Redmond, CEO of Eaton Corporation. Mike Adams' insights remind us that having and executing a big, bold vision, leading with courage, and communicating with clarity are essential for seizing this once-in-a-generation opportunity in today's critical infrastructure boom. If you enjoyed Mike's fearless leadership and his signature Mikeisms, don't miss my upcoming CIO.com blog featuring more of Mike's insights, where we're going to explore the communication strategies that he uses to inspire action, especially in times of complexity. Thanks once again for joining us on the Tech Whisperers podcast. Please subscribe, share this out, and stay tuned as we continue to bring you conversations with the visionaries powering our digital future. Till next time, everyone, stay well.